So, Brian, thank you for coming in today. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm pretty good. Thank you for asking.
So, if it's okay with you, I'd like to ask you some questions. So, we're going to go over the PHQ-9.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you some questions. You can answer them with not at all, several days, more than half the days, or nearly every day. And the questions I'm going to be asking you are going to be referring over the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
So in the last 2 weeks, have you experienced little interest or pleasure in doing things? And then again, you could say not at all, several days, more than half the days, or nearly every day.
Oh, not at all.
Not at all? That's good. How about feeling down, depressed, or hopeless?
Not at all.
That's good. Have you had trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, or sleeping too much?
Several days.
Several days. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sometimes I can't get to sleep, and then I find myself waking up in the middle of the night, or I can't even get to sleep, and I'll be up all night. And sometimes I'll get up and eat breakfast, and then that helps in the middle of the night. But most of the time, I've had trouble with sleeping. But it's getting a little better. It just depends.
So it sounds like the sleep has kind of been an issue for a little while now.
Definitely, yeah, my whole life.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. How about feeling tired or having little energy?
Definitely when I don't get enough sleep, I feel that the next day.
So would you say not at all? Several days? Several days?
Yeah.
And do you think that this feeling tired or not having that much energy is has to do mostly with just the lack of sleep?
I think so.
Okay, that makes sense. How about having a poor appetite or overeating?
I probably overeat, even though I try not to. Definitely not a poor appetite, so I'd say several days.
Several days? All right. Is there anything that you notice when you may have the urge to overeat? Is there anything that you notice going on or any type of emotions coming up for you?
I think I do it because I feel maybe a little stressed. Like in the morning, if I'm going to work, I might be craving like a donut with coffee. And I'll probably get like 3 donuts instead of 1.
Okay. It's good to know. How about feeling bad about yourself or that you are a failure or have let yourself or your family down?
I'd say several days.
Several days. And when I ask about that, what comes to mind for you?
I think I put myself under a lot of pressure, and I tend to always think that there's something wrong with me, and I try to use my cognitive reframing and thought stopping to help those issues because I know that they're not true. So that's been helping a little bit and it's keeping it down. But for some reason, I just have that natural insecurity, I think. I just carry it around.
Yeah, I can understand that. But the good thing is it sounds like you're really self-aware of it and you have a good idea of when that comes up for you and you do use reframing techniques to help you through that. So that's good. And Over the last 2 weeks, have you had trouble concentrating on things such as reading a newspaper or watching television?
Several days.
Several days.
Yeah, I get distracted easily,
Okay.
and so I can like watch a little bit of TV, but then I'll get distracted and I want to read a little bit of a book, and then I want to play some music, and I can't really focus on one thing unless I have a deadline or something to meet.
Okay, so maybe having the pressure of a deadline might help you focus a little bit more, but overall, it's kind of hard to pick one thing at a time to focus on.
Yeah, it's kind of scattered, and
Okay.
if I have a deadline, I can usually multitask and watch TV and work on a paper or something.
All right. Sounds good. Let's move on to, have you been moving or speaking so slowly so that other people may have noticed, or the opposite, being so fidgety or restless that you have been moving around a lot more than usual?
I feel like I speak very slowly in class, especially. I feel like when I have something to say, it's either I can't find the words and I'm stuck, or I know what I want to say, but I say it in a million different ways and it comes out too fast and mumbled. And so one of my teachers just gave me an oral exam and he said I was being incoherent.
So would you say that's an issue for you several days, more than half the day, or nearly every day? More than
Several
half the days? Oh, sorry.
days, yeah.
Several days. All right. And last, I'd ask, any thoughts that you would be better off dead or hurting yourself in some way?
No, not at all.
Okay. So, if you've experienced any of these problems, how difficult have the problems made it for you to do your work, take care of things at home, or get along with other people? Not difficult at all, somewhat difficult, very difficult, or extremely difficult?
Somewhat difficult.
Somewhat difficult. And as I asked you these questions, were there any that stood out to you the most that you think maybe over the last 2 weeks have been higher on the list of things that might be bothering you, interfering with your sleep?
Well, sometimes when I can't sleep, I can't stop thinking about my feelings of inadequacy and my insecurities and frustrations in that sense. So I feel like those two go hand in hand,
Absolutely.
and that creates the tiredness in the day. So the more I try to work on the cognitive techniques to stop those thoughts and deal with those thoughts in a more productive way, the more I can sleep, I think, and I feel better all throughout the day, especially.
That's good. Um, so we can definitely work on those reframing your thoughts. The good thing, like I said, is that you're already very self-aware of some of these issues and that you have some techniques under your belt to start working through them. Your score came up as a 6, so you may be suffering from some mild depression, but we can definitely connect you to resources and start moving things forward so that, you can improve your sleep a little bit or your focus, anything that's coming up for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. You did a great job in filling this out with me. Thanks.
Courtney, thanks for coming to see us today here at Don Gatto and Associates. I'd like to ask you a few questions considering your anxiety level in the last couple of weeks. In the last 2 weeks, would you say you've been feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge? Not at all. Several days, more than half the days, or nearly every day?
I would say nearly every day.
And when you say that, Uh, what brings that to the forefront? Why do you say that? Tell me a little more about those feelings.
Um, I just noticed that I have a lot of panic attacks kind of out of the blue for no reason. Most of the time they're pretty mild, so they're not, they do interfere with what I'm doing throughout the day, but it's just, I notice that my heart will be beating very fast for like really no good reason. And
Are there any specific triggers that you recall, or does it just come on out of the blue?
sometimes there's triggers. It can be driving, social interaction, but there are a lot of times where it happens out of the blue, and I can't identify a specific trigger for that.
Okay. And you say over the last 2 weeks, have you been bothered by not being able to stop or control your worrying? Not at all. Several days, more than half the days, or nearly every day?
More than half the days, I would
Oh.
say.
And when that is happening, does that go along with your panic attacks, or does it precede, or does it come after?
If they are like linked or if they're going hand in hand, I feel like the worrying will come after or before the panic attack. But I do in general just kind of over worry about a lot of things. If my house is too messy, it makes me worried. And just being a mother, I feel like I have a constant underlying sense of worrying about their well-being, if they're safe, how they're going to turn out when they're older. That's like a pretty constant underlying emotion for me that doesn't really dissipate.
Now, when it comes to your kids, are you a single mother, or do you have support in that area?
Yeah, I'm a single mother, but they do go see their dad once a week, and that's usually when the worrying feels excessive, when they're not in my care.
I see. So you worry about your kids when they're not with you.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And when you're worrying, in the last 2 weeks, do you feel like you worry about specific things, or do you worry just about a bunch of different things? And is that several days, more than half the days, or nearly every day, or not at all?
I'll say more than half the days. And I'd say it usually clumps together in categories such as maybe worries about children, how they're doing in school, their behavior. And I would also say like housing and financial instability are things that come up for me.
And you think you worry too much about those things?
Yeah. A lot of it, stuff is like out of my hands. So a lot of it, I worry about, but worrying about it brings no benefit. There's nothing I can do to make any difference.
And does that give you trouble relaxing? Not at all. Several days, more than half the days, or nearly every day in the last couple of weeks?
I would say several days. I do feel like I have a trouble when it comes to relaxing, but I can usually overcompensate by disassociating. So if I'm relaxing, it's not really like an enjoyable leisure thing. It's more like disassociation and avoiding any thoughts or feelings that come up.
Okay. So it's kind of trying to just get away from your thoughts and your mind, and just find a way out.
Yeah.
What about being so restless that it's hard to sit still? Would you say not at all? Several days, more than half the days, or nearly every day?
Nearly every day.
Okay. And what does that feel like? Does it have to do with the worrying and other things,
Um,
or is it just general that you feel that way?
I just notice, like when I'm in class, I have a really hard time sitting still, and I am super fidgety. And on the other hand, when I am sitting still, like if I'm sitting down watching TV or something, I'm scratching at my nails, like I'm picking and like fidgeting, like constantly moving my hands.
So there's a lot happening under the surface, and you're just kind of responding to that
Yeah.
time. Okay. And you find yourself becoming easily annoyed or irritable in the last couple of weeks? Not at all. Several days, more than half the days, or nearly every day?
Nearly every day.
Okay. And what does that look like when you become annoyed with people, or just your mood swings, or what is causing that, you think?
I just noticed I can be like have less patience with my children. If they're throwing a tantrum or getting upset with me, I have a little less patience overall in handling that. I don't know. I would say even with my pets,
Oh,
if my cat knocks a cup of water over or whatever, I definitely lose
wow.
my chill for all that.
So your cat is not trained professional.
No.
Oh my God. Okay. And that kind of compounds with your generalized feeling of anxiety and worry, because you're not really wanting to deal with a lot of issues that come up, and that kind of pushes your buttons in a way.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And what kind of techniques do you use to help you deal with that, if any?
Um, for techniques, I use medication and I practice yoga maybe like 3 or 4 times a week consistently, but I try to do more.
You'd like to do more yoga?
Yeah.
How about feeling afraid as if something awful might happen in the past couple of weeks? Not at all. Several days, more than half the days, or nearly every day?
Not at all.
Okay. So just generalized worry, anxiety, worrying too much. When you try to relax, you kind of feel like you're disassociating because you're not really getting that deep rest, but you're just kind of tuning out in a way.
Right. Yeah.
And you're using yoga to help you with your panic attacks, to help regulate your nervous system
Mm-hmm.
a few times a week, hopefully more.
Right.
Um, and then you do take medication. And does that seem to help as well?
Um, yes. If I can maybe take it in advance of some anxious feelings rather than being anxious and taking it in that moment, it does a little better.
So it's more preemptive. You take it every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just once a day.
I think it's as needed, twice a day, probably.
Okay. So you can kind of find yourself and realize and recognize when you're starting to feel like the worry is getting a little too much and it might overflow into like a panic attack.
Right. Yeah.
And then that's when you can use your medication, or you can start your yoga. When you're doing yoga, do you feel like you're more tuned into your body rather than more disassociated? Like,
Um, Yeah, that's why I like it.
Hmm. Okay, it sounds like you've got some good techniques, and we can definitely work on implementing those and increasing them, and maybe coming up with some more insight as to what is causing you your worry and why you feel like you can't control it sometimes.
Okay. Yeah.
And it sounds like you've got a good handle on things and you're doing pretty good, but you just might need a little support along the way.
Right. Yes.
Okay. What do you think, Don Gato? Is she okay? All right. He says you're good to go.
Awesome.
Thanks, Courtney.
Thank you.